Hello, thank you so much. Thank you, Iowa. It's fantastic to be here. Oh my gosh. This is my first Iowa State Fair. How many of you guys are here from Iowa? Raise your hand if you're a Democrat. Oh my gosh, I only get Democrats. That's great. Independents? Republicans? We love you all. We love you all, and you're still going to love what you're about to hear, I believe. I'm Andrew Yang. I'm not from here. You might have guessed that. I was born in upstate New York. My parents immigrated here from Taiwan in the 1960s. My dad's a physics professor. My mom's an artist. My brother's a psychology professor. And I became an entrepreneur and CEO. I grew an education company and it was acquired by a public company in 2009. And so at that point, I started looking around and asking, what are the big problems in the country? And one of the biggest problems I saw is that if you are a bright, enterprising person in a place like Iowa, some people are telling you that you have to go someplace else for better opportunities. Young people here, you know what I'm talking about? And I thought to myself, that is messed up. That is not right. And I'd seen that because the company I ran was helping people get jobs on Wall Street, and I saw people from all over the country come to Wall Street and try and build careers for themselves. There's nothing wrong with that, but I still thought to myself, there has to be something better for a young, smart person to do than come to Wall Street and just make lots of money for themselves and not really do anything positive for society. So I was trying to figure out, what would you want a young person to do when they were graduating from college? If you could just do anything, if you had like magic powers and you could say, I'm going to get young, enterprising, ambitious people to do something. So I'd love to get some suggestions. What would you want an enterprising recent college graduate to do if you could just like, again, wave a magic wand? Go ahead, shout it out. Volunteer. Volunteer, that's pretty wholesome. I like it. What else? Make a living wage. We need to do even better than that. Oh, really? We'd have to do better than that. So what I thought the ideal use of an enterprising recent college graduate would be to grow a business or start a business in Detroit, Cleveland, Baltimore, New Orleans, Birmingham, like a city that was on the rise, and keep them away from Wall Street or Silicon Valley and say, look, there are other places where you can build awesome businesses and hopefully create jobs that are going to create opportunities. So I donated some of my own money to start this because I made some money when my company was acquired. So I donated some money to start this organization called Venture for America. How many of you have heard of Venture for America? A few of you. How many of you like documentaries? How many of you have Netflix? So there was a documentary on Netflix that was made about my organization called Generation Startup. So if you're into documentaries and you have Netflix, you can watch that movie tonight. I make cameos as the magical Asian man. I'm like the Yoda. I descend from the heavens and I guide young people. So I started this organization in 2011. It grew and grew to the point where there was a movie made about us and we helped create thousands of jobs, trained hundreds of entrepreneurs to build businesses around the country. But during this time, I started to sense that there was something much deeper going on in the economy, where even as we were helping to create dozens or hundreds of jobs, we were losing tens of thousands of jobs in industries like manufacturing and agriculture and retail. How many of you who know someone in Iowa who's lost their job in manufacturing or retail over the last number of years? At least a couple of you do. So what I started to realize was that starting businesses in these communities to create jobs was like pouring water into a bathtub that had a giant hole ripped in the bottom. And the giant hole ripped in the bottom was that technology is advancing in a way that's going to eliminate the need for human labor. And that sounds very sophisticated, but it's just going to make it so that human labor is less central to our economy over time. So I'm going to run this, and you guys are actually going to be great at this. What are the most common jobs in the U.S. economy by category, like the top 5? Long-haul trucking. This man heard me on Sam Harris, so he knows. That's actually right. Trucking is the most common job in 29 states, and that's category number 4, truck driving and transportation. What are the other top 5? Teachers, unfortunately, is not. That would probably be a good thing if it were. Shout it out. You guys know these. Farming also is not. Retail, yes. Retail and sales is number 2. 10% of American workers work in retail. So if you think about retail here in Iowa, you have 178,000 retail workers in this state, down 12,000 since 2001. How many of you have noticed malls or stores closing in your area? So 30% of malls are going to close in the next 4 years because Amazon gets another $40 billion in e-commerce every year. So even as you're sad that the stores are closing, you don't really go to those stores anymore. But there are a lot of people that work in those stores for a living. They make on the average about $12 an hour. So one big question is what happens to those millions of retail workers when the malls close? So now we've done 2 and 4, retail and trucking. What are the rest of the top 5? Hospitality, yes. So administrative and clerical, which includes call center workers and some hospitality, is number 1. It's the most common job in the country. And I was just talking to some young people earlier, yes. How many of you saw the Google software demo that came out last month where it like imitated a call center worker and made a call and made an appointment? You're nodding, you said yes. Raise your hand. I love it. The people who come as we speak, like see that demo, because you know what's going on in the future. So how long do you think it's going to be before Google can outdo the average call center worker? Soon. Give me a time frame. 2 years, 5 years, 2 weeks, someone said. Last year. So it's somewhere between 2 weeks and 5 years. There are 2.5 million call center workers in this country making on average about $14 an hour. There are tens of thousands of call center workers right here in Iowa. So what's going to happen to those call center workers when that software can outdo the call center worker? They're going to lose their jobs, and then what's going to happen next? So when you start looking at the biggest drivers of the labor market, it's administrative and clerical, sales and retail, food service and food prep is number 3. McDonald's is now rolling out self-service kiosks in every location in the United States. Do you think that's going to affect the number of people they need? Of course. Why else do you think they're doing it? You know, it's like going to put that there, then hire fewer people. Number 4 is truck driving. There are 3.5 million long-haul truck drivers in this country. It's the most common job in 29 states. 94% male, average age 49. So my friends in Silicon Valley are working on trucks that can drive themselves. How long do you guys think it's going to be before trucks can drive themselves? So this one's a little trickier. Someone said 10 years. Get another guess? All right, so my friends in Silicon Valley, this is really, really important. There's a pot of gold, one of the biggest pots of gold in all of business, to automate truck driving. The savings from automating truck driving, according to Wall Street, are $168 billion per year in not just labor costs, but fuel costs, utilization of equipment, accidents, and the rest of it. So that's one of the biggest pots of gold in business today. So what do you think the technology companies are gunning for? They're trying to get that money because that's what businesses do. They see that pot of gold and they say, we're going to go for it. So they're going to have hundreds, thousands of the best engineers in the country working on solving that problem. And they tell me that they are 98% of the way there. And right now, the model they're working on is they're going to have people beam into robot trucks and take them over anytime the computer's not sure what to do because the weather's bad or the road is poorly marked. So they're going to have warehouses full of teleoperators ready to assume control of the truck anytime the truck's not sure what to do. And they're going to have convoys of robot trucks. What do you guys think the ratio of teleoperators is going to be to truck drivers? 1 to 1? 1 to 1,000, 1 to 10, 1 to 30, but that's what they're working on right now. Again, there's a pot of gold. That's the business logic behind it. But we know here in Iowa what's on the other side of that. And this gentleman looking at me is thinking about it too. He's like, what is on the other side of that? On the other side of that are the 3.5 million people who drive a truck for a living and the 5 million Americans who work in the truck stops, motels, and diners that you all stop at every time you go on a trip. But those people are not on the minds of Silicon Valley. I can guarantee you that. What's on their mind is $168 billion. So that's the world we live in right now. This is all real. And unfortunately, only 13% of truckers today are unionized. So it's going to be hard to even reach some sort of like, hey, let's try and negotiate against this. Or let's try and forestall progress. So I'm here to let you guys know, like I've been in Silicon Valley, I've been in New York, I'm here now in Iowa, and we need to get our acts together as a society very, very quickly to come together in a way that we're going to help every American get through this period without losing their jobs and then being told, hey, it's your fault, because it's clearly not your fault. It has nothing to do with anything we're doing. It's the fact that AI now is getting to a point where it's about to displace human labor on an unprecedented scale, and Victor is nodding because he knows this too. Sorry, guys. I have a few friends here, obviously. You had a question?
I'm not going to yell. I just want what your position is going to be on the crooked judges that are, and the lawyers that are taking children from law-abiding parents like myself and giving them to child abusers, because Obama passed a fatherhood initiative in 2012, and that was to give any abuser or someone that maybe might have not been paying child support or that doesn't know how to be a father, custody. But when he did that, it was to put them into programs to teach them how to be fathers in like bad neighborhoods or whatever. Well, what's happening, I'll say to Democrats it was unintended, but I don't think it was. What's happening now is law-abiding mothers like myself that raised these children for 15 to 17 years no longer get to see our children after they're parentally kidnapped. And the governor here of Iowa just passed Iowa Code 710.3. No, he just passed Iowa Code 710.3 allowing parental kidnappings. So what will you do to reunite families and keep law-abiding parents and families together? I live currently in Texas, but I'm from Iowa, and I assure everyone here, they've been lied to about the border families. These kids aren't in cages, and they came with over 80%. So what will you do to keep our families together instead of this Obama that's has separated all of us from our kids?
Well, first I just want to say I really love the megaphone. I just thought to myself, man, I need to freaking have a megaphone like everywhere I go. But as a parent, I think that is completely messed up, that no parent should be separated from their child under virtually any circumstance, and certainly not for something as minor and trivial as, and anyone who's a parent knows that it is incredibly hard work, and that having an institution judge you for any particular behavior or moment of time is ridiculous and unfair, and it's inhuman, because every parent has had those times where you do things or you don't do things, and we cannot live in judgment of other parents along those lines, and we all know.
Hold on a minute. I don't want people here to get the wrong impression. My kids were not taken by CPS or by anything. My kids were taken because of a pathogenic parent. Parental alienation is pathogenic parenting. It's a clinical term, and it's a sickness where we need to get mental health reform in this. We need to get alienation experts in here. We need federal funding to get alienation experts in every state, because there's passive pathology onto these kids, and they take the kids into the chambers, and a judge with no degree in psychology is asking children who they want to live with. I've never done anything. What I did, I took their phones away for a week, grounded them, and now I've never seen them. I haven't seen them in 3.5 years.
Wow. I actually admire you taking their phones away. That's good parenting, in my opinion. Yes. It's a major issue. So I thought when you were saying you would run for president, I thought you were going to ask, what am I going to do about all these things I was talking about? That's where I thought I was going to go. Yes. And you'll do anything to reunite with your children. I understand it completely. And that's exactly what any parent would do. Oh, well, let's talk a little bit after. So I have the plan to try and help society get through this automation wave. I have 3 big pillars to the plan. The first one, I think you're going to love. The first one is that every American adult should receive a freedom dividend of $1,000 a month, what my friend now wants me to call the tech check. Because at this point, value is getting hoovered up into the cloud via Amazon and a bunch of other things, and we have to be able to rebuild an economy from the ground up, people up, and human beings up. How many of you have heard of trickle-down economics, everyone? How many of you think that's garbage and doesn't work? Yes. So we need the opposite of trickle-down economics. We need trickle-up economics from our people up, our families up, and our communities up. So think about what you would do with $1,000 a month. Some of you are thinking about it. Think about what your friends and neighbors can do, and we can completely afford that as a country. Our economy is now up to $19 trillion, up $4 trillion in the last 10 years alone. We can easily afford this. The Republicans are talking about austerity and the rest of it, but they just authorized a $1.5 trillion tax cut. Guess what percent of that tax cut actually went to workers? 3. It's a good guess. Thank you, brother. It's not far off. It's 6%. 6% of that $1.5 trillion paycheck tax cut went to workers, and 57% went to shareholders. So we know what that was about. We know where the money's going. We need to bring the money back and put it in the hands of the American people right here in Iowa. The second thing is we need to get health care off the backs of the American people. I'm for Medicare for all, where we take healthcare costs that right now, #1 cause of bankruptcy in the United States is healthcare costs. And you guys are all very young and healthy and looking, so you probably don't have to deal with this. But I'll tell you, like, if someone gets sick or injured, first they worry about getting well, but second they worry about having to pay for it. And that's messed up in this country. We can do a lot better than that. And the third thing is I want to measure the economy differently so that instead of having GDP go up to the moon and it has no relationship with how we're doing, we invented GDP less than 100 years ago during the Great Depression just to see how things were going. And the inventor of GDP said a bunch of things. He said, one, this is a terrible measurement for national well-being. So what do we use it for? Measurement for national well-being. He also said that parenting and motherhood work should be included in GDP, and national defense spending should not be included. This was a very smart man, but we ignored most of what he said. So GDP now is a measurement that doesn't mean much to us as a society because it's going to keep growing even as our communities go the other direction in some cases. And so we need to measure our economy and things that mean something to us. So what would mean something to you if you had to measure our economy? You had to say, hey, let's do it this way. And you have a t-shirt that says something that I think... Children, childhood success rates. Imagine if we had an economy that had childhood success rates as a measurement, and if you did something that helped children succeed, you actually get paid or get a personal benefit. What else would we use to measure the economy? What's that? Yes, productivity per worker or even median income and wealth, because then you can see how the average American's doing as opposed to how this GDP number is doing. How about mental health and freedom from substance abuse? That would tell us how we're doing. How about environmental quality? That would tell us how we're doing. How about proportion of elderly in good situations? So these are the kind of measurements that I would implement as president. Call it the new American scorecard. And then instead of having these bizarre States of the Union addresses that are like these weird theater performances that we don't learn anything from anymore anyway, have actual measurements as to how we're doing and then say next year we're going to come together and try and bring these numbers down or up. Because right now 7 Americans are dying of drugs every hour in this country. And that should be something that we pay attention to much, much more than GDP rate. So this is the big plan to get us through this period. $1,000 a month for everyone, healthcare, Medicare for all, paid for by the government, and then new measurements for the economy. So that is the plan. Would love to have your help and support on this. The Democrats of Iowa, raise your hands again if you're a Democrat. So the Democrats of Iowa, I got to say, you guys are in an incredible position where everyone's going to come to you and ask you what you think the future of the country should be. And you're going to choose the future of the country. And the question I'd want to leave you with is, we're all going to come and speak to you all for the next number of months, and then we're going to disappear to DC. And then you're going to hope you did the right thing and sent the right person over there. And the big question is, what's going to happen here in Iowa after we all disappear and head to DC? And the test has to be whether we make your lives better, we make your families stronger, we make your communities better. And that's what I'll do as president. I'm Andrew Yang. I'm running for president as a Democrat. Thank you all very, very much. $1,000 for all, the freedom dividend. Thank you all.